In this video, I'm going to be remaking Nitro type YouTubers thumbnails for free. Now, before we really get started into this video, I do want to say that I don't think any of these thumbnails are particularly bad. I'm just redoing them because, well, I think I make pretty good thumbnails, and I wanted to give my shot on how I would do these thumbnails. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump straight into this. First of all, this thumbnail right here by Midas Nitro type. Basically, it's a clip from, I believe, Hotel Transylvania, and it has two people singing Nitro Llama and Don't Stop Typing, which are two of the more iconic Nitro type parody songs, and it basically puts them in a versus situation together. And honestly, I wanted to give my shot on this thumbnail. The original thumbnail had a simple blue background, Nate Dogg's logo, Penguin Typer's logo, a little versus symbol in the center, and the names of the songs beneath the logos conveying that it was Nate Dogg's song versus Penguin Typer's song. So for my thumbnail, I decided to do like a rap battle versus thumbnail between the two of them, which I think sticks with the theme of the original thumbnail and also represents what's in the video pretty well. So I'm happy with that idea. But first of all, I wanted to give a little constructive criticism to the original thumbnail. When you're putting something that represents people in a thumbnail, ideally do their face. The reason for this is people, when they're looking at things, are just like psychologically drawn to faces. I don't know why, I just know that's how it works. People are psychologically drawn to faces, so when you're putting something that represents someone on a thumbnail, even if their logo is pretty recognizable, ideally do a face because people are just drawn to that. Second of all, when you're putting text on a thumbnail, make sure it's pretty big. Text on a thumbnail, keep in mind the majority of YouTube's viewers are just on a tiny little mobile phone. So if you are doing text on a thumbnail, chances are they probably can't read it from their phone unless it's pretty big, which is the case for the original thumbnail. If you're scrolling on a mobile phone, you probably have to like squint to actually be able to read that. So just generally as a rule of thumb, if you're putting text on a thumbnail, either don't, or if you are doing it, make sure it's pretty big and definitely readable for a mobile phone. As you can see here in the thumbnail, I added the original pictures of Nate and Penguin Typer, and then I'm adding two microphone pictures I found on the internet. I started off with a little bit of shading, added like some white paint, which it's like a white paintbrush for the lighting on the outside of the microphone to match kind of where the light's coming from in Nate Dogg's original image. Then I made sure to also add a microphone shadow on them, blur it out, and just generally get that all good and merry. Now you may think it doesn't look super realistic, especially how the hand is holding the microphone, because keep in mind, if it's Nate Dogg holding the microphone, how exactly are they doing that, right? Why are they holding it like this? Shouldn't they be holding it like this? Don't worry about that. No one thinks about that when they're looking at a thumbnail. It's not the biggest thing to worry about. As long as it doesn't look particularly out of place when they're scrolling on their tiny little phone, you're good. So just generally make it look pretty good and you should be fine. And fun fact, the majority of like hands and thumbnails are not actually like half the time like the same hand image, in case you're wondering about like whether or not it's actually good to add in like fake hands from other sources. Like no one's actually going to be able to tell, and that's again exactly what I did. And obviously you can see there on the Nate Dogg one, I think I did a pretty good job. For Penguin Typer's image is a lot lower res, and believe me, that was the highest res one I could get, which is kind of sad when you think about it. So I just basically got a bunch of canvases and that were smaller and smaller and shrunk the image on lower res canvases so I could save that image and then import it into the original one so the resolution would match up better with Penguin Typer's. I'm sure there's an easier way to do that, but that's the way I did it. So yeah, basically my idea was the rap thumbnail with the two people versing each other. I needed the microphones in there so that people could actually cool microphones, right? You can tell they're singing from the thumbnail. You don't need to know, you should be able to usually tell what a thumbnail's about or what a video's about without reading the title, so that's exactly what I was doing here. Instead of adding the names of the songs, I made it look like Nate Dogg and Penguin Typer were singing. That way I didn't have to spell out the names of the songs, because no one would be able to read the names of the songs on a thumbnail this size without making it look super awkward or covering their faces. I tried out some ideas of some more dynamic lines, but I wasn't really really feeling them. So in the end, I just ended up clean cutting it straight down the middle. And honestly, I think I did a pretty good job. I experimented with the line a little bit more, but I honestly think I did a good job of saying Penguin Typer's song versus Nate Dogg's song. I think I did a really good job of that. And yeah, comment your thought, and especially Midas, if you're watching this video, comment your thoughts on this thumbnail and just your general thoughts about it, because I think I conveyed the same message with a simpler thing. Also, this thumbnail right here for this Nate Dogg video, where Nate Dogg requests his community to design him a custom play button. Honestly, this is actually a pretty good thumbnail. Obviously, they did a whole pose for it already, so we're probably going to be using that in our thumbnail as well, but I thought it'd be fun to give my shot at redesigning this thumbnail too. Nate Dogg's original thumbnail had him holding a custom play button like this, and I did like the image of Nate Dogg. However, again, the text was too small, and this one actually had a ton of empty space in it, which is usually never good for a thumbnail, so I decided to go in a kind of different direction. However, I did use a Nate Dogg from the original thumbnail. So one of the things that was really emphasized in the video, and I felt like it was like a major part of the video in fact, was whoever would win this custom play button competition would get their play button on a back wall. Now, I didn't have an actually good image of Nate Dogg's room, and I did want the play button to stand out in Nate Dogg's room, so I went on the internet and got something that wasn't Nate Dogg's room. I found an image that I really liked in the simplicity with it, and to fill up the rest of the space, I duplicated it and mirrored it to fill up the rest of the thumbnail, and now we got this nice room in the background. And my goal right here was to make it actually look like Nate Dogg was in the room. So obviously we got a shadow being cast onto the back of the room. However, I also noticed this light right here, so in order to make that more realistic, we needed to erase some of the shadow to create this kind of light effect like a light actually does, which is removing darkness. And my whole idea for this thumbnail was to have the whole main custom play button on the left and Nate Dogg on the right. And I think by the end of it, I did a pretty good job of conveying the fact that it was a custom play button going on Nate Dogg's wall. And it was very also obvious by the end of it that whoever won the contest would be on the wall. So I got some random image of a play button off Google, duplicated it, turned it all black to create a shadow in the background, and then we got this nice shadow here. However, I also wanted a shadow to go around the entire outside, so I duplicated that shadow, moved it around, and then I also wanted a bigger shadow on the left side, however, because there was a light on the right side, so I needed to kind of like counter that and add some shading in there. Then I made sure to blur the YouTube play button to match the graphics a little bit, and then we wiped out a bunch of the text because all this text is going to be done in the final result. Then, to make sure to match the shading, I selected the entire thing and got some big spray brushes and started trying to do shading as best I could. Again, the lighting is actually in the center of the room for this one, so we want the right/bottom right side area to be a lot lighter and the top left side to be a lot darker because there isn't a light over there, right? So I just continued adjusting all of that there, slowly trying to get the lighting realistic so it looks like it's actually in the room. Keep in mind, nothing really needs to be 100% realistic. Again, if you actually look at Nate Dogg, it kind of doesn't look super realistic like they're actually in this room, but it just needs to be looking real enough at first glance, because again, most people are on mobile, and even besides that, most people aren't like super analyzing thumbnails or anything like that, well, except for me. But well, maybe I'm not an exception. I have no idea. Point is, I don't think many people are looking at it, but I do want to create a sense of realism, at least at first glance. Even if you can tell everything is photoshopped together, I want it to look more realistic. So I got the edge of the drawer there, put a shadow behind that, and then erase some of the shadow to make it actually look like the drawer's in front of it. That adds some depth to the thumbnail to make sure everything's in front of everything. That's something super important when you're photoshopping really anything together, is to make sure there's actual depth and shadows, because that's something that a lot of amateurs miss, and you do not want to miss that, because that's one of the biggest giveaways. Originally, I was going with a different set of text. However, the text contest winner on the thumbnail I think worked just best, and I also chose this font because I felt like it was a lot more dynamic and exciting, a lot more event. Now, sometimes it's easier to and better to just go with the simple thumb, like a simple text. However, I don't think this was the case. Originally, I was trying to keep the YouTube logo in there to make sure there's a play button, but honestly, I just erased that because no one's going to be even able to see that in the final product anyway on the mobile phone. So I didn't worry about that. And now we've got some big words that say contest winner on a thumbnail. And from this is like we're getting into the final stages of development here. You can clearly see that whoever wins the contest is going to be getting like their custom play button on the wall. And I think that's evident from the thumbnail, and if it's not evident from the thumbnail, you can at least tell from the title. I adjusted the shadowing and some cool things there. Originally, I was trying to do this like engraved look with it, but in the end, that just didn't really like turn out that well at all, in my opinion. Like the engravement, the text didn't stand out enough, and so then I had the idea, well, why not go like full fiction and make this like the brightest, glowiest piece of text ever, so contest winner really stands out. And honestly, I think that was a good decision on my part to just emphasize contest winner a whole ton. So now you can see that contest winner has a play button on Nate Dogg's wall, and I think that's generally a good idea. It fills the whole thumbnail. I think I did a pretty realistic job of making it look like Nate Dogg's actually in that room, even if it isn't the most realistic thing in the world, and when you really look at it you can tell that they're not. I think it at least looks like it, like someone could say, oh yeah, they look like they're in that room. Originally, then I started adding the text to make sure it was more standing out a bit more, because again, we want this to look as like poppy as possible, so people read contest winner, and then with the title they kind of get what's going on. I think I did a good job of portraying the whole story in the thumbnail. Then I started to do an arrow. Is going to be one of these simple arrows. Now, arrows in certain situations, I do think YouTubers kind of have started overusing them. I mean, like, but sometimes in certain circumstances, and in this circumstance, I felt like it could really actually do some favors. So I actually took an image of an arrow off the internet, used the warp tool to kind of warp it around and see how it fit, and I honestly think it really added to it. See, the contest winners play button is on the back wall behind Nate Dogg, and I think that really just makes a good final product. Comment your thoughts on this one in the comment section below, though. One thing I do want to mention, if you are a YouTuber and you see me redesigning your thumbnail and you like the thumbnail, feel free to just take it and use it on that video. I do not mind if you take the thumbnails, just literally screenshot from the video or email me or DM me on Discord asking for the thumbnail image. I can send it over to you, just FYI. And that's the same for anyone else in this video. You get the idea.